The movie opens up with an American sniper named Mike and his companion Tom, positioned in the Afghan desert, waiting for a wanted terrorist named Saeed Asif. After a short while, the terrorist arrives in a car with his group and steps out. Mike receives the order to take a shot immediately, but he hesitates when he realizes it's a wedding arrangement, and the terrorist might be the groom's father. The delay in taking the shot allows the terrorist to stand behind the groom. Suddenly one of the gunmen spots the reflection of Mike's gun and alerts everyone. Chaos ensues as they all start firing. Mike and Tom quickly seek cover behind a large rock as the gunmen give chase. Fortunately, a sandstorm approaches from a distance, causing the gunmen to retreat. Tom immediately contacts the base and requests evacuation, but the major informs him that due to the ongoing sandstorm it's impossible to evacuate them. He suggests they embark on a 5-hour journey on foot towards the west, where they will find a village and be rescued from there. Following that, Mike and Tom continue their journey amidst the scorching heat of the desert while talking random shit. After walking for hours, a signboard comes flying to Mike, displaying a danger sign. Mike picks up the signboard and mentions that in the last 40 years, there have been 8,000 conflicts in this area with approximately 33 million mines laid, making him hesitant to proceed further. Tom reassures him, explaining that villagers often use such signs to discourage outsiders from entering their villages. He stresses that they only have two options, either press forward and reach the village or turn back and succumb to thirst. Following that, Mike and Tom continue moving forward. As they walk for a while, Mike accidentally steps on something. Fortunately, it's just a small plastic toy soldier, which he puts in his pocket before continuing. Tom teases Mike about how scared he is while carelessly walking backward. Suddenly, he steps on a landmine which sends him flying into the air. As Mike takes a step to help his friend, he accidentally triggers another mine with a clicking sound. He freezes in shock, realizing that his own foot has set off the mine. Tom has survived the explosion but has lost his legs due to the impact. He injects himself with morphine to bring some relief to his suffering. Mike urgently urges Tom to contact the base for emergency assistance through the radio. However, Tom, still in shock, has lost his mind and struggles to communicate properly over the radio. Unable to see his friend suffering, Mike decides to take a risk and step forward toward Tom, considering the possibility that the mine might be old and rusted and may not detonate. However, Tom strongly advises against it, insisting that Mike must survive no matter what, before choosing to end his suffering by shooting himself. Mike is left with immense grief, realizing that he has lost his best friend and now he is stranded alone in the middle of nowhere. He composes himself and ties his shoelace to a hammer to pull Tom's bag, allowing him to access the radio. However, upon searching the bag, he realizes that there's no battery for the radio inside, and all the batteries are attached to Tom's uniform. Undeterred, Mike employs a portable solar panel to charge an old battery. After successfully charging the radio, Mike contacts the base and explains his situation, urgently requesting immediate help. The major informs him that due to the ongoing sandstorms in various areas of the desert, all their aircraft are grounded, and reaching him is currently impossible. He informs Mike that an Allied convoy will pass by his location in 52 hours and Mike must be ready to signal them for rescue. Additionally, he mentions that as the mine is old, there's a 7% chance it will not detonate if Mike lifts his foot. Mike is left frustrated, wondering how on earth he can stand in the same position for 52 hours, and then sets a 52-hour timer on his watch. Following that, he takes out a protein bar and starts eating. Suddenly the wrapper flies from his hand, and he notices a colossal sandstorm approaching towards him. He immediately puts on his bag and uses his rifle as an anchor on the ground to prevent being swept away by the storm. Once the storm subsides, Mike sees that Tom's corpse is blown towards him. He retrieves the radio's battery from Tom's pocket, but when he looks around, he realizes that the bag containing the radio has been carried away by the wind, leaving him laughing at his fate. Now it's been 9 hours since Mike is standing in the same position in the scorching heat. His water bottle has run dry, and he feels extremely thirsty. Exhausted, he pulls out his gun and fires into the sky, shouting for help, but in the desolate desert, there is no sign of any human presence for miles. Feeling helpless, Mike points his gun towards himself, contemplating an end to his suffering. Just then a Berber appears on the horizon, zigzagging towards him. Mike attempts to communicate with the Berber, warning him about the presence of numerous mines in the desert, but the Berber imitates Mike's actions, seemingly mocking him. This leads Mike to suspect that the Berber is the one who planted these mines, so he directly asks him about it. The Berber replies,
"Mine, not mine!"
He then steps closer to Mike, who requests that he retrieve the radio from the bag and fill his flask with water. The Berber takes Mike's flask but advises against listening to music, suggesting instead that Mike should step forward and go home before walking away. Mike shouts in frustration that he can't move because he has stepped on a mine, but the Berber instructs him to keep moving before disappearing into the desert. This leads Mike to assume that the Berber is an idiot. After a considerable amount of time passes, the Berber still hasn't returned with the water, compelling Mike to resort to drinking his pee to quench his thirst. Just as he takes a sip, He spots a little girl whom he presumes to be the Berber's daughter, approaching him with a flask in hand. She zigzags towards him and hands the flask filled with water to Mike. Mike quenches his thirst and thanks the girl for bringing water. She shows him a plastic soldier, and Mike reciprocates by revealing a similar plastic soldier he found on the way. Although the girl doesn't understand English, she attempts to communicate using a plastic soldier, suggesting that Mike should take the next step. Mike asks her to hand him the radio from his bag, but the girl struggles to understand him, leading Mike to grow loud, scaring the girl away. As time passes by, evening sets in, and Mike finds himself stranded here for a total of 14 hours. He takes out an energy bar from his bag and starts eating while listening to music. As night falls, Mike lights a fire to ward off the cold and begins to look at pictures of his wife on his phone, remembering the good old days. After a short while, he nods off, only to wake up and find that the fire has gone out. He notices wild dogs are dragging Tom's carcass away to feast on. Suddenly some of the dogs start advancing towards Mike to attack, prompting Mike to shoot at them in self-defense. One of the dogs steps on a mine, causing a powerful explosion that scares away the rest of the pack. The following morning, Berber returns to Mike and tells him that he's very lucky to have survived both the killing heat of the desert and the wild animals at night. He stupidly asks Mike why he stepped on a mine.
Why you put foot on mine, eh?
Mike responds in frustration that he obviously didn't know the location of mines, unlike the Berber who navigates the area using a zigzag pattern because he knows the location of the mines. The Berber states that he doesn't know the location of the mines, and he walks zigzag to avoid stepping on them. Mike again considers him an idiot but still requests the radio from his bag. The Berber finally brings the radio from the bag but teases him before handing it over. He encourages Mike once again to move on before leaving. Under the blazing afternoon sun, Mike pulls out a knife to rip open his shoes, allowing some air to reach his feet. Growing hungry, he kills and eats a passing crab, resorting to drinking his own urine as his water supply has run out. In the boredom of the desert, Mike begins to imagine fake scenarios in his mind, just like we do in the shower. Suddenly he sees a mirage of his deceased friend Tom, who appears to rise and engage in conversation with him. As night falls, wild dogs once again launch an attack on Mike. However, he doesn't have enough ammo to fend them off completely, so he resorts to using a knife. Due to his hallucinations, Mike perceives the dogs as the people he hates and kills each of them with his knife, but not without sustaining significant injuries himself. The next morning, he is contacted via radio from the base. The major informs him that the extraction team that was supposed to rescue him is 10 hours late, and Mike will have to endure 17 hours by now. Faced with this news, Mike's spirit shatters, and the major understanding Mike's condition connects him with his wife. Hearing his wife's voice, Mike becomes quite emotional and apologizes for messing everything up. It has been 48 hours since Mike became stranded here, and due to exhaustion he begins to collapse forward, but the Berber arrives just in time and prevents Mike from falling. While applying ointment to Mike's wounds, the Berber shares his own story. He reveals that just like Mike, he had once stepped on a mine, resulting in the loss of one of his legs. Immediately taken to the hospital, he was distressed about his life with one leg. However, at that moment, he heard a song on the radio nearby with the lyrics "You've got to keep moving on," and a nurse approached him with a smile. Something magical happened at that moment as all his worries vanished. After being discharged from the hospital, he went on to find a wife and had many children. He says that he may not be as lucky as Mike, but he is a free man, emphasizing the importance of resilience and moving forward in life. Mike compliments the Berber, stating that he has a lovely daughter and that she has his smile. However, the Berber drops a shocking truth: his daughter had passed away years ago. On that day it wasn't his daughter who brought water for Mike, it was the Berber himself. He goes on to share that they used to extract mines from the ground and sell them in the market, and his daughter was a pro at it. After taking out a mine, they'd put a tin can at the spot to give the impression that all mines were still intact, thus keeping outsiders away. Unfortunately, one day a mine went off accidentally during removal, and his daughter died as a result. The Berber encourages Mike yet again to move on before walking away. As Mike watches him leaving, he witnesses the Berber's daughter walking alongside him, but with a gust of wind, she vanishes because it was merely a mirage. Following that, Mike begins to experience extreme mirages induced by an energy drink the Berber gave him. He witnesses scenes from his childhood home and recalls traumatic memories of his abusive father who used to beat him and his mother, and Mike still hates his dad for this. The mirage then transitions to beautiful moments spent with his wife, reminiscing about the happy times they shared. The visions extend to the first time he met his wife at a restaurant when he saved her from troublemakers. The emotional journey takes a poignant turn as Mike remembers the final moments of his mother's life, bringing tears to his eyes. Moments later, Mike spots the extraction convoy passing in the distance. Excited and hopeful, he attempts to use the flare, only to realize that in reality his hands hold nothing but sand. Everything turns out to be just another mirage, playing tricks on his desperate mind. Out of nowhere, Mike is shot from behind, exposing that the very terrorists he came to eliminate are now targeting him. Leveraging his sharpshooting skills, Mike swiftly takes them down with precise headshots. However, as the last terrorist advances towards him, he runs out of ammo. To his surprise, the final assailant turns out to be none other than Mike's father, appearing as a mirage. His dad steps closer and embraces him, leaving Mike in a conflicted state of mind. Stranded for over 2 days, Mike reaches his breaking point, unable to endure the torture any longer. Recalling the Major General's mention of a 7% chance that an old mine might not detonate, Mike gathers the courage to take a step forward. To his surprise, the mine doesn't explode. He immediately digs around the spot, only to discover that it wasn't a mine but a tin can, placed by the Berber after removing the mine. Opening the tin can, Mike finds a plastic toy soldier inside. For the first time in life, he experiences true happiness after being stuck on a can for 3 days. Following this, he uses the emergency flare, signaling the extraction convoy that swiftly arrives and pulls him to safety. Following his recovery, Mike returns to his home country, the USA, proudly wearing the plastic soldier around his neck as a symbol of his survival. At the airport, his wife is waiting for him. Mike kneels down and proposes to her, promising never to leave her again. Subscribe if you don't want to step on a mine. See you in the next video. Till then, take care and goodbye.